Welcome on board, chosen one. Step in, wipe your boots on the broken expectations they tried to bury you under, and take your seat. The air gets different when you show up, doesn't it? People shift, faces tighten, voices change. Funny how the same mouths that once told you, relax, you're overthinking, suddenly go quiet when you walk into the room. Look at them now. Oh, the ones who said you were dramatic. The ones who claimed you were imagining things. Those same legends are practically bowing without meaning to, because you see what they hoped you'd never notice. They're panicking because you catch things they tried to hide. You read patterns they prayed you'd miss. Your vision isn't just sharp, it's HD, and they know it. Here's the cold fact they hate the most. You were right. Not once, not twice, consistently, painfully, embarrassingly right. Every "you're paranoid" was actually "please don't look too close." Every "you're too sensitive" was "stop noticing what I'm doing." Every time they laughed, it was because they felt the ground slip under their feet. And they lied through their teeth, hoping your third eye would blink long enough for them to get away with something. But you didn't blink. You don't blink. You never did. Before we keep slicing through their illusions, hit the like button and subscribe so this message keeps circling back to the ones who need it. Let's keep going. This part isn't for tourists. This is for the one who's been walking around with instincts so sharp they practically puncture the room. You've stepped into that weird silence lately, right? The silence that feels like the aftermath of a war you didn't announce, but absolutely won. People look at you like you're holding evidence they didn't know you collected. You talk less because you've learned that speaking the truth makes liars lose oxygen. You stand still and their masks start slipping. That's the shift. That's the energy. The universe didn't hand you a sword, it handed you awareness, which is worse for your enemies. Look back at your past for a second. Remember when you were young and you'd catch things others missed. When you knew someone's mood before they opened their mouth. When you'd say something was off and everyone rolled their eyes. Until your warning became reality. Yeah, that wasn't coincidence. That wasn't lucky guess. That was your internal radar, the same one people mocked until it saved them. You didn't become who you are today out of nowhere. You were training your whole life without knowing it. Those moments where you felt out of place weren't failures. They were upgrades. You were getting sharper every time someone tried to dim you. Look who's watching you now, quietly, secretly. The same people who dismissed you are studying your every move because you make them feel exposed. You make them feel seen. You make them feel small in the exact places they wanted to stay hidden. They pretend they're fine, but the way they tense up when you enter the room tells the truth. The way they pause mid-sentence, the way their eyes flicker, the way their posture shifts like they're bracing for impact. That's not intimidation, that's recognition. They're realizing you are not someone they can fool anymore. Here's a truth that hits like a steel bat. People fear what they cannot manipulate, and you, chosen one, are officially unmanipulatable. You used to second-guess yourself, remember? You used to think you were overreacting. You used to feel guilty for noticing too much. Now, you're a walking lie detector with a built-in bullshit alarm. You spot the crack in their story before they even finish the first sentence. You see the intention underneath the behavior. You read the energy before the words arrive, and they know it. They will never admit this, but your presence feels like exposure therapy for them. You force the truth out of people without opening your mouth. It's the way your eyes follow inconsistencies. The way your silence ruins their performance. The way you stop entertaining nonsense. You're no longer playing nice. You're not carrying other people's illusions. And the moment you stopped doing that, their whole act began falling apart. Here's another fact. Your growth closed doors on them before you even realized it. People who thrived off your confusion can't survive your clarity. People who fed on your self-doubt are starving now. People who relied on your blind trust are terrified of your vision. Your awareness is a threat. Your insight is a weapon. And your peace? That's the loudest warning siren they've ever heard. You want to know why everything around you has shifted, why certain people vanished, why new enemies crawled out of their shadows. It's because you stopped being predictable, you stopped being easy, you stopped carrying everyone's emotional weight. You started choosing yourself, and the universe snapped everything into place the moment you did. This is the part they'll never forgive you for. You're not confused anymore. You're not naive. You're not waiting for proof. You see things clearly, instantly, fully. And there's nothing more frightening to a dishonest person than someone who actually pays attention. You're not the villain in your story, you're the villain to theirs, and that's what makes you unstoppable. You've made it this far, chosen one, and don't pretend you don't feel that pull in your chest right now. That little spark that whispers, keep going, you're finally hearing something real. This is the point where the ones who fake confidence drop off, but not you. You stay because you can feel the universe tugging at your sleeve, telling you there's something here meant for your eyes only. If you're ready to claim the vision they tried to shame out of you, leave HD Vision active in the comments, so I know you're one of the few who actually sees. And as we shift into the next phase, hold tight, because the clarity that's coming isn't soft, it's surgical. The ones who fear your insight would tap out right here, but you're built for this. And now we dive deeper, step by step. If your third eye really is the HD lens they're panicking about, you'll feel the pull to stay until the final word. Let's get started. Number 1. They're taking notes because your mind outran their whole playbook. Funny how the people who called you crazy are the same ones copying your every move now. They've been stalking your energy like it's a crime scene, chosen one. Every breath you take, every silence you hold, every instinct you trust, someone out there is screenshotting it in their mind, trying to decode what the hell you are. They don't study you out of curiosity. They study you out of fear. Deep, stomach-twisting fear, the kind that makes their hands shake and their voice break when they talk about you. They didn't expect someone like you to exist in their world of predictable, programmable minds. They thought everyone followed the same script they do. Then you showed up and tore their little manual in half just by being yourself. And here's the part they'll never admit, even to themselves. You make them nervous without doing anything. Your silence? A threat. Your stillness, a warning. Your intuition, a weapon they can't disarm. They've been trying to figure out how you see through them without asking a single question. How you sense a lie before the mouth even moves. How you call out their energy without lifting an eyebrow. They tell themselves you're overthinking. But the real joke is they're the ones overthinking why they can't hide from you. Let's talk about that. Because I know the question burning in your mind right now. Why me? Why do they act like I'm some kind of unsolvable equation? Simple. You don't react the way they expect. You don't fall for the bait. You don't get manipulated by the usual tricks. While they're playing checkers, your brain is calculating entire blueprints. They think they're being subtle when they study you, but you've been picking up every micro-expression, every insecure twitch, every shift in their tone. You see the whole truth behind the cheap disguise. They feel exposed around you, like you're walking around with X-ray glasses they can't turn off. They tried diagnosing you with labels because they wanted to shrink you. You're too intense. You think too much. You read too much into things. Translation: You're catching everything I hoped you wouldn't notice. They didn't want you to understand your power. They wanted you to doubt it long enough for them to stay safe in their lies. But their little tactic failed miserably. Because every time they thought they had you pinned, you evolved. Every time they thought they cornered you, you shifted. You're a glitch in their system, a variable they can't control, and nothing rattles a manipulator more than a person who sees straight through them. They've been trying to study you to gain control, but watching you only made them more lost. They thought if they analyzed you long enough, they could predict you. Instead, they watched themselves fall apart in the reflection your energy threw back at them. It's funny, isn't it? They wanted to understand you, but the deeper they looked, the more they learned about their own insecurities. You weren't exposing them on purpose. Your presence alone cracked their armor. Your clarity peeled their masks off. Your awareness sliced through their performances like a blade dipped in truth. And here's the gut punch for them. You're not trying to be mysterious. You're not performing. You're not crafting some persona. This is just who you are when you stop pretending to be small. You operate from a place they have never visited, filled with levels of perception they were never brave enough to access. They live on surface-level signals. You read the whole frequency. They interpret words. You interpret intentions. They rely on expressions. You rely on patterns. You're not ahead of them. You're in an entirely different ecosystem. Now here comes a metaphor they deserve. Imagine them as kids trying to decode the ocean by studying a puddle. That's exactly what it looks like when they study you. They poke at your behavior like they're conducting an experiment, never realizing the entire time you were the one studying them. Not for validation, not for revenge. Just because your mind naturally maps people out the way others breathe. You can't help it. You pick up details, inconsistencies, energies, motives, all without trying, and that terrifies them because you can't unsee what you see. Every time they sent someone to test you, that person came back rattled. They didn't understand why talking to you felt like their hidden self was being dragged into the light. They didn't get why you looked them in the eyes, and it felt like their secrets flinched. They didn't know how to handle that your aura doesn't bend under pressure, it stiffens. You don't shrink. You don't beg. You don't dance for approval like they expected. You're the type who walks into a room and the entire atmosphere recalibrates around you. So of course they're studying you. Of course they're obsessed. Of course they're losing sleep. You're a walking disruption to their comfort zone. You're a reminder that authenticity still exists in a world built on pretending. You're living proof that intuition is real, that clarity is deadly, that awareness is a weapon sharper than any blade. And they know the second you step into your full power, there's no going back for them. They can't hide anymore. They can't lie anymore. They can't control you anymore. Let's hit another question circling your mind. If they fear me this much, why don't they leave me alone? Because your existence challenges everything they built their identity on. People who live in illusions hate the one person who sees reality. People who hide behind masks hate the one who notices the cracks. People who manipulate hate the one who doesn't take the bait. They don't want to run from you. They want to decode you, contain you, break you down into something they understand. But they can't. And that failure maddens them. You didn't ask to be the one who sees. You didn't ask for their obsession. You didn't ask to be the lens that reveals their lies. But here you are, chosen one, walking through the world with HD vision while they're stuck buffering on 144p. And the funniest part? They'll keep trying. They'll keep studying. They'll keep analyzing. But all they'll ever get is confusion because you're not meant to be understood by people who fear the truth. Let them study. Let them watch. Let them panic. You're not here to be predictable. You're here to be undeniable. The universe didn't give you vision so you could blend in. It gave you vision so you could walk with clarity through the fog that keeps everyone else asleep. And every time someone tries to dissect you, they only end up dissecting their own limitations. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to defend your instincts. You don't need to shrink for their comfort. Your existence is the report. Your growth is the answer. Your awareness is the weapon. And their panic? That's the proof you're doing exactly what you were meant to do. Keep walking, chosen one. Let them keep taking notes. They're studying the blueprint, but you're the architect. Number 2. You're the error that breaks their whole simulation. Wild how they call you the malfunction when it's their fake world crashing every time you show up. You're not just a glitch in their matrix, chosen one. You're the proof the matrix was garbage from the beginning. They built their lives like a staged movie set, full of cardboard emotions and pre-scripted reactions. And you walked in like an unscheduled scene that the cameras weren't ready for. They wanted people who repeat lines, nod on cue, and stay blind on command. Instead, the universe dropped you into their little simulation. Someone who actually sees, actually questions, actually feels, actually thinks, and that terrifies them more than any monster under their bed ever could. Here's a quote they deserve to choke on. You didn't break their world. You exposed the cracks they painted over. From the moment you entered their orbit, things started glitching. People couldn't lie as easily. Manipulators got sloppy. Secrets slipped out. Their masks didn't stick the same way. You weren't trying to ruin anything. Your very presence just made their illusions malfunction. It's like you walk around emitting this energy that forces the truth to unravel whether you're looking for it or not. And let's hit the first question simmering inside you. If I'm the glitch, why does everything feel so heavy on me? Because when you see clearly in a world built on denial, you carry truths other people run from. Your clarity is weighty, but it's also what sets you free. They're terrified of that clarity while you've learned to live with it. That's the difference. Remember this quote. People fear what wakes them up more than what puts them to sleep. Now let's paint a picture they can't erase. Imagine this. A massive digital map full of perfectly aligned dots, every one of them following the same rhythm, the same signal, the same dull frequency. Then suddenly one dot flickers out of sync. Not because it's broken, but because it starts running on a higher voltage. That's you. The system glitches not because you malfunctioned, but because you evolved. And every time you light up, the dots around you start buzzing like, wait, we can do that too? You weren't the problem. You were the proof of what the system hid from everyone. Here's another metaphor they deserve. Imagine a room full of people watching a fake sunset on a screen, clapping like trained seals at the colors. Then someone walks in, pulls the curtains open, and shows the real sky. The crowd doesn't thank them. They panic. They scream. They accuse you of ruining the moment. But you didn't ruin anything. You showed them what they should have been looking at all along. That's exactly what your presence does. You don't destroy illusions. You reveal reality. And let's address another silent question inside you. Why does everyone react so weirdly around me? Why do I make people uncomfortable without even trying? Because you're the living reminder of everything they suppressed. You're what authenticity looks like in a world addicted to numbness. That kind of energy is disruptive, not violent, not toxic, just disruptive. You're the thunder before the truth hits. Your vibe short-circuits the fake confidence people wear like armor. Here's a quote to carve into your memory. The glitch isn't broken, the system is. You know what scares them most? Not that you see things, not that you notice details, not that your intuition reads their intentions before they form words. The real horror for them is this: every time they talk to you, every time they stand near you, every time they try to play you, their simulation starts failing. You make them feel things they've hidden beneath a lifetime of pretending. You make them question choices they swore were final. You make their carefully constructed identity tremble like loose wires. They wanted to live in a world where people don't question anything, where nobody remembers their own power, where everyone follows the script. But then you come along, raw, unfiltered, painfully awake, and suddenly they see how artificial their world has been. Another metaphor they've earned. Imagine a mirror placed in a haunted house. The people inside have convinced themselves they're alone, that nothing is wrong, that nothing is lurking behind them. Then the mirror shows them exactly what's been breathing down their necks. That mirror is you. You don't create darkness. You reveal what's already there. You don't amplify their fears. You expose what they've been ignoring for decades. Their panic makes sense now, doesn't it? They didn't want someone who thinks for themselves. They didn't want someone who sees the patterns behind the performance. They didn't want someone whose intuition cuts sharper than their lies. But that's what the universe made you into, a walking contradiction to everything they built their identity on. Why am I contagious? You're probably wondering. Why do people act different after talking to me? Because you're not speaking to their persona, you're speaking to their buried self. One conversation with you, and they start noticing the cracks in their own life. 1 hour in your energy, and their mind starts glitching like, hold on, something isn't adding up. Your presence rewires people without your permission. You're like an emotional defibrillator. You shock them back into awareness by existing. Here's a quote that punches exactly where it should. Your frequency rearranges people's lives, and that's why they call you dangerous. The truth is brutal but clean. They traded their vision for comfort. They chose routine over intuition. They shut down their inner voice because it whispered things they weren't brave enough to confront. Meanwhile, you kept your eyes open even when it hurt like hell. You carried truth like a burning coal. You stared reality in the face and said, "Fine, show me everything," and the universe respected that. But now those same people are realizing something they never expected. You can't be programmed. You can't be predicted. You can't be manipulated. You can't be controlled, because glitches can't be contained. They evolve. Imagine this last metaphor, a computer system designed to keep every outcome predictable, every user compliant, every function repetitive. Then one day, one piece of code becomes self-aware, not hostile, not rebellious, just awake. Suddenly the entire system spirals, not because the code broke anything, but because awareness itself is the most dangerous disruption in existence. That's you. Awareness in human form, truth wrapped in skin, a signal the system can't silence. Their world can't handle someone who sees the invisible, hears the unspoken, and questions the unquestionable. So they call you the glitch. But what they don't realize is that glitches are the beginning of upgrades. You're not breaking reality, you're reminding it to evolve. Every system needs an anomaly to force it into growth. They should have left you alone. They should have never studied you. They should have never underestimated you. Because now, you've outgrown their simulation, you've outseen their illusions, and you've outlived the version of you they thought they could control. Let them panic. Let them glitch. Let them crash. You were never meant to fit their matrix. You were meant to rewrite it. Number 3. The burden of seeing what they pretend isn't there. The truth doesn't make you lonely. The truth just exposes who was never really beside you. There's a reason people keep their distance from you, and it has nothing to do with you being too much, too intense, or whatever cute little labels they toss around to hide their discomfort. The real reason? Being around you forces them into a level of honesty they've been avoiding their entire lives. You don't ask for the truth. You pull it out of people just by existing. Your energy is a walking polygraph test, and most people are stitched together with lies they've baptized as their personality. So of course they avoid you. Of course they talk about you. Of course they try to shrink you, because admitting you're right means admitting their whole worldview is built on denial. Here's the gut punch they deserve. People don't run from you. They run from what you reveal about them. And let's get into something no one tells you when your third eye shifts into HD. The hardest part isn't the clarity. It's not the instincts that hit with sniper precision. It's not the visions that show patterns they can't see. The real weight? The loneliness. The kind that sits in your chest like a cold stone, heavy and unmoving. You're surrounded by people who hear with their ears while you hear with your intuition. They see faces. You see intentions. They see the moment. You see the pattern behind it. That gap creates isolation they can't comprehend. Imagine this. You're standing on a tall rooftop while everyone else is on the ground floor. You see the whole city, the lights, the shadows, the routes, the exits. They only see what's right in front of them. So when you warn them about what's coming, they call you dramatic, until your prediction becomes their reality. That rooftop vision is both your gift and your curse. Another image. Picture holding a flashlight in a dark tunnel while everyone insists the darkness is normal. You shine the light. They scream you're ruining the vibe, but without you, they'd walk straight into walls. That's the weight you carry. You're probably asking yourself, why does seeing so much feel like punishment? Because awareness demands responsibility. Clarity comes with consequences. Insight separates you from people who find comfort in blindness. You didn't choose this weight. It chose you because you were the only one strong enough to carry it without breaking. Here's another truth. The deeper you see, the fewer people can follow. And that distance they create. It's not rejection, it's admission. They know you see the inconsistencies in their voice, the cracks in their choices, the masks slipping off their personality. They know you can hear the lie hiding behind their laughter. They know you feel the shift before they even make their move. That kind of perception makes most people want to flee. Imagine a chessboard. They think they're making casual moves, and you're already 10 steps ahead, watching their whole strategy unravel before they realize they're in checkmate. That's the weight. Knowing too much, seeing too far, predicting too early. But here's the twist they never expect. The loneliness isn't a curse. It's a filter. It removes the ones who can't handle your depth and leaves room for the few who actually deserve your presence. You're not alone because you're unlovable. You're alone because your vision eliminates the people who would have wasted your time. You're not burdened, chosen one. You're refined. You're sharpened. You're tailored for a level of existence most people never touch. And the silence around you, that's not emptiness. That's altitude. You're breathing air they're not built for. Let them stay on the ground. You were made for the rooftop. Number 4. When you turn invisible because they can't handle your vision. They didn't silence you. They made you so aware that speaking became pointless. This is the phase nobody warns you about, chosen one. The part where you go quiet, not because you're weak, but because every time you tried to tell the truth, someone flinched like you threw a grenade. You'd point out a pattern, and they'd laugh like you were joking. You'd share a feeling, and they'd smirk like you were being dramatic. You'd reveal something you noticed, and days later they'd twist it, flip it, weaponize it. That's when you learn the brutal rule of your life. Your clarity becomes their discomfort, and their discomfort becomes your silence. And that silence slowly turns you into a ghost, not the spooky, floating in the shadows type. No, the kind that's standing right there, but nobody really sees. The kind whose presence is felt more than understood. You talk less, observe more, detach faster, and move quieter. You're in the room but never fully in their world. They sense you, they respect you, but they don't get you. How could they? You're speaking in emotional HD while they're buffering at 144p. Here's a hard truth they'll never admit. They didn't misunderstand you. They understood you too well. Your truth threatened their lie. Imagine this. You're watching a movie you've already seen 100 times while everyone else is seeing it for the first time. They're shocked by the twists. You predicted them minutes ago. They trust the hero. You already spotted the betrayal. You're not being cynical. You just recognize patterns faster than they can process them. That's the ghost phase, moving through scenes you've already decoded while everyone else is still on the opening credits. Here's another image. Picture standing in a crowded street holding a map while everyone insists the city is a maze. You try to show them the route. They accuse you of overthinking, but the moment they get lost, suddenly your silence feels like a warning they ignored. And you probably ask yourself, why can't I just stop seeing everything so clearly? Because that's not how your mind works. Your awareness is not a switch. It's a lens welded into your soul. You don't choose to see people's trauma. You just do. You don't choose to feel their pain. You absorb it before they speak. You don't choose to predict the ending. You've lived enough cycles to recognize the script. And the worst part? You can't unsee any of it. That's why you haunt rooms like a ghost. Quiet, observant, untouched by the illusions everyone else clings to. They think you're distant. They think you're cold. They think you don't care. But the truth is sharper than that. You care so deeply, you've learned to protect yourself from the weight of people who aren't ready to face their own reality. You became the ghost not because you faded, but because you rose to a vantage point they can't reach. Number 5. When silence becomes the weapon they never saw coming. They called you quiet, not knowing your silence was doing more damage than their noise ever could. You tried shrinking yourself to fit their tiny little version of reality. You tried softening your edges, lowering your perception, pretending you didn't notice the cracks in their voices or the lies woven into their smiles. You dumbed yourself down just to keep the peace, just to avoid the exhausting reactions you got every time you spoke the truth. But every time you played along, it felt like suffocating inside your own mind. It was like wearing someone else's mask while your real face screamed underneath. It wasn't shyness, it wasn't awkwardness, it was self-betrayal, slow, painful, and soul-rotting. So you stopped. You stopped pretending you didn't see the elephant in the room. You stopped nodding along to nonsense. You stopped babysitting their fragile egos. And the moment you chose your truth over their comfort, they panicked. They slapped labels on you like it was some kind of emergency. Too deep, too intense, too much. Funny how the same people who begged for real ones couldn't handle one when they finally met you. Here's the punchline they never expect. Isolation isn't exile, it's elevation. They thought your solitude was proof that you'd lost. But solitude was the first time you could actually breathe without pretending. Silence wasn't emptiness. It was freedom. It was the moment you finally heard your own thoughts without their noise poisoning the signal. Imagine this. While they were out there chasing attention like starving pigeons fighting over crumbs, you were sitting in your own presence like a king sharpening his blade. They collected followers. You collected clarity. They built an audience. You built a backbone. They filled their lives with noise. You filled yours with truth. Another image. Picture them running around in circles, desperate for validation, desperate for applause, desperate for any distraction from their own emptiness. And then there's you, alone in a quiet room, becoming someone they'll never be able to imitate. In silence, you became dangerous. In solitude, you became sharp. In stillness, you became someone who cannot be manipulated, controlled, or distracted. You're probably wondering, why does being alone feel so powerful now? Because isolation stripped away the illusions. It separated what you wanted from what you were conditioned to accept. It introduced you to the version of yourself you'd been too busy to meet. And once you saw who you really are without the world's fingerprints all over you, something clicked. Here's another truth carved in stone. Power grows in the places where people think you're disappearing. While they were gossiping, you were healing. While they were doubting you, you were leveling up. While they were mocking your silence, you were mastering it. They thought taking people away from you would break you. Instead, it built you into someone who doesn't need a crowd, a chorus, or an audience. Someone who stands alone without shaking. Someone who sees clearly without asking for permission. Your solitude didn't weaken you, it refined you. It turned your silence into thunder. Number 6. The fire that forged the version of you they can't handle. They thought the flames would destroy you, not knowing you were in there getting upgraded. While they were out there performing for approval like circus acts, you were in the dark doing real work. Not the cute surface-level self-care they brag about. You were performing surgery on your own soul, cutting out old programming, burning off fear, extracting every lie you ever swallowed just to keep the peace. They called it loneliness. But you know what it really was? Refinement. You were being shaped in a fire that would have melted them on impact. Imagine this. They were sunbathing in warm light while you were in a volcano forging armor. That's why your eyes look different now. That's why your intuition sounds louder. That's why your vision is razor sharp. You didn't walk out of isolation. You rose out of it. Here's a truth they'll never admit. You weren't abandoned. You were upgraded in private. You're not bitter. You're grateful. Solitude became the teacher crowds could never be. It taught you that validation is a trap and clarity is freedom. Your third eye doesn't negotiate, doesn't ask for agreement, doesn't wait for applause. It sees, and you finally trust it more than any outside voice. You're probably asking yourself, why do I feel so steady now? Because every time they called your intuition paranoia, and it turned out to be right, your foundation hardened. Every time you saw the truth before anyone else, and they laughed, you became even more certain. Now, you're untouchable. They can't gaslight you. You've seen the blueprint. They can't manipulate you. You read their tactics mid-sentence. They can't control you. You run on your own internal navigation system now. You didn't survive the fire. You became it. Number 7. When your own mind became the one source they can't censor. They don't fear your vision. They fear the day you finally stop doubting it. You became your own oracle, chosen one. Not the mystical cloak and candles type, but the kind who learned to trust your internal radar more than the world's shaky opinions, and that's what rattles them the most. It's not that you see what they can't, it's that you believe what you see, even when everyone else tries to gaslight you back into blindness. They call you psychic with that fake little laugh. intuitive with that side eye, gifted with that tone that says they're trying to put you in the same box as fortune cookie wisdom. Let them choke on their labels. Here's the truth they won't say out loud. People mock what threatens their illusion. Imagine this: they're walking through a funhouse full of warped mirrors, swearing everything looks normal. You're the only one seeing the straight, real reflection, so they call you crazy or picture them listening to static their whole life, thinking it's music. You hear the real melody underneath it, and suddenly you're the weird one. Please. They minimize what they can't comprehend because it keeps them safe. If they admit your sight is real, they have to admit they've been blind their entire lives, and the ego will burn before it ever does that. You're not psychic, you're awake. You're not gifted, you're attentive. You're not special, you're just brutally honest about the patterns everyone else pretends don't exist. Most people drown truth in noise just to stay comfortable, but you ran straight into it. You let it break you open, rearrange you, rebuild you. That's why you're dangerous now. You didn't become an oracle for the world. You became an oracle for yourself. Number 8. Your vision cuts through lies like glass. They don't fear what you see. They fear that nothing they do can hide from you anymore. You're not just seeing the world, you're slicing through it. You walk into a room and it's like everything slows down. Faces, energy shifts, the way someone's eyes dart for half a second when they lie. You catch it all. Not because you're supernatural, but because you finally stopped believing people's pretty little stories and started watching their actual behavior. That's when the whole simulation cracked open. Imagine this. Everyone else is watching the movie, but you're watching the director's commentary. They hear jokes, you hear intentions. They see smiles, you see insecurity. They hear explanations, you hear excuses. It's not magic, it's pattern recognition turned lethal. Here's a truth that punches right in the throat. People reveal themselves long before they admit who they are. You're tracking the micro-expressions they can't control, the tension in their voice they can't hide, the energy shift they don't even realize they're broadcasting, while everyone else sticks to the script. You're reading the subtext with frightening accuracy. That's why they panic around you. That's why they avoid eye contact. That's why they stumble over words when you look directly at them. They can feel you analyzing the 90% of communication that lives underneath language, the part they never learned to manipulate. And you're probably thinking, why does it feel so natural now? Because you trained your mind to stop accepting things at face value. You became fluent in human inconsistency. You became sensitive to the tiny fractures in behavior where truth leaks out. You don't see more than them. You just refuse to be fooled like them. And that makes you the most dangerous presence in any room you enter. Number 9. The one who sees the pattern before the person. They don't fear your intuition. They fear that you already know their ending before they finish their sentence. You see it every time, chosen one. That tiny flicker in their eyes, the truth leaking out before their brain has time to plaster on the fake smile. Fear, envy, guilt, hunger. Whatever it is, you catch it. You file it. You connect it to every other inconsistency they thought you forgot. While they're busy performing, you're busy collecting data. While they're shaping a persona, you're mapping out their real nature. You've become a walking lie detector with a built-in archive. Imagine this. Someone says they're fine, but their jaw tightens for half a second. Most people miss it. You don't. Or imagine someone promising loyalty while their energy shifts like a light flickering before it burns out. You track these tells in real time like a detective solving the case before anyone realizes a crime was committed. Here's a truth you already know in your bones. People are unpredictable only to those who refuse to believe the pattern. Your accuracy isn't magic. It's the result of finally accepting the truth the world tries to ignore. You stopped believing words and started believing behavior. You stopped giving extra chances no one earned. You stopped romanticizing potential and started trusting evidence. And now, their charm doesn't land, their manipulation glitches, their lies collapse before they leave their mouth. They hate it. They hate that your energy exposes the intention behind their voice. They hate that you're not reacting anymore. You're predicting. You're not just reading patterns. You've become the one pattern they can't rewrite or control. Number 10. The truth they'll never say out loud, but you already heard. They don't fear being caught. They fear that you figured them out before they even acted. Here's the part that makes them squirm in their skin. You don't need their confession. You don't need their apology. You don't need them to sit down and admit what they did, because your intuition already handed you the full report before they even opened their mouth. You felt the shift the moment they started moving funny. You sensed the tension in the split second before they lied. You caught the betrayal in the energy long before the word showed up to confirm it. You don't need evidence. Your instincts are the evidence. Imagine this. Someone tries to hand you a map for a city you've already walked barefoot. That's what it feels like when they try to explain themselves. You already know the streets, the shortcuts, the dead ends. Their confession means nothing because the truth hit you long before their guilt ever did. And here's a quote that slices right through their performance. You don't wait for closure when your clarity already closed the door. You're not waiting for proof anymore. Proof is slow. Proof is for people who don't trust themselves. You've seen too much to play that game. Your internal alarm system has been accurate so many times it's basically undefeated. They want you to ignore the red flags because those flags expose them. They want you to give more chances because your boundaries threaten the access they once had. They want you to believe in potential because their reality doesn't hold up under inspection. But you've already lived that arc. You know what happens when you override your intuition. You know what it costs to explain away the discomfort. You know the damage that comes from choosing hope over patterns. And you're done paying those prices. Now you trust the first red flag. Now you honor the first shift in tone. Now you walk away at the first sign of misalignment. Let them call it paranoia. Let them call it overthinking. Let them mock the instincts that read them like open books. Because the same instinct they laugh at has saved you more times than their advice ever could. And that's what really scares them. Number 11. The moment their gaslighting stopped working. They never feared your overreacting. They feared the day you'd start believing yourself again. Let's talk about gaslighting, chosen one, because they've been throwing that at you like it's some kind of leash. They used it to twist your reality until you second-guessed your own heartbeat. They used it to make you apologize for things you felt long before you could explain. They used it to convince you that your clarity was crazy, your instincts were dramatic, and your intuition was too sensitive. They needed you confused. Confusion kept you quiet. Confusion kept you small. Confusion kept you manageable. Imagine this, someone slowly turning down the brightness on your screen and insisting it looks the same. That's gaslighting. Or picture them swapping your glasses with blurry lenses and calling you delusional when you say the world looks off. You weren't losing your mind, you were losing their illusion. Here's a quote that should sting them right where it hurts. Gaslighting doesn't work on a mind that finally trusts its own light. And that's why they panic now. Because you stopped asking for their version of events. You stopped depending on their explanations. You stopped letting them rewrite your experiences. You started believing what you felt the first time. You're probably thinking, why do their tactics feel so obvious now? Because once you see the mechanism behind the manipulation, it's impossible to unsee it. Their tone shifts, their contradictions, their fake confusion. You catch every glitch in their act. They can't twist your reality anymore. They can't make you doubt your memory. They can't rewrite what you lived through. Their power depended on your self-doubt. Now that you trust yourself again, the gaslight is dead, and they know it. And now you feel it, don't you? That clean, cold click in your chest. The moment everything lines up and the whole game finally makes sense. You're not confused anymore. You're not questioning yourself anymore. You're walking out of this with high-definition vision and zero tolerance for their illusions. You earned this clarity, and nobody's taking it from you again. If this hit you in the places they tried to blind, prove you're one of the real ones. Hit the like button, subscribe, drop 77 in the comments, and share this with another chosen one who's waking up.